Thank you all so much for joining us today for our weekly webinar. Just a couple of housekeeping things is that everyone is going to be muted during the presentation. We will ask questions at the end, and so if you have questions, just feel free to write those down, and we'll get to those at the end. Something else is if you're new here and you haven't been joining our webinars before, thank you for joining us. We know that everybody's schedules are crazy busy, especially right now in the pandemic, but we're so thankful that you took time out of your day to join us. If you haven't joined us before for our webinars, we would definitely encourage you to get on our email mailing list so that we can send out all the events that we have going on. And a quick way to do that is I'm going to walk you through it real quick. Is just through our website. We have a super easy way to look at it. So while I have this pulled up, I'm going to pull up our website, which is www.aspirewealthbuilders.com. And as soon as you click on there, it's going to pull up a pop-up that you can sign in with. So I highly recommend everyone to do that because we don't want y'all to miss out on some events that we're going to be having coming up. One in particular is our Christmas open house, December 18th. We'll be sending out an email list for that. We're doing a virtual one and in the office one. So we definitely want to make sure that everyone comes to that because it's going to be a lot of fun, and Laura always brings the best snacks. So we'll always have good food, I promise that. So I'm going to introduce Laura. She is one of our financial advisors here in the office. She has been in the financial industry for 15 years, and before that she worked for the community in Mississippi or a police officer, serving her community that way and keeping everyone safe. So we're very thankful for Laura and all that she does here for us. So I'm going to turn it over to Laura now.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. Before I introduce our next speaker, I want to give Michelle Ratcliffe just a floor just for a minute. She can tell us a little bit about the Hot Springs Chamber of Commerce and the Hot Springs Metro Partnership. She's currently the Economic Development Manager for the Hot Springs Metro Partnership, where she's responsible for working with existing business and industry in a business retention and expansion role. And she also assists with the attraction of other business to our area. So, Michelle.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. This is great. It's nice to see some familiar faces and hopefully to meet some new friends as well. Yeah, from the Chamber and economic development standpoint, actually, I'll start with the economic development side, which that tends to be my forte. We work extensively with the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. They are a state agency. They're run under the Department of Commerce, but they actually have a women's entrepreneurship program. It's women and minority-owned businesses, and so they provide all sorts of resources for women and minority business owners with different assistance, all kinds of technical and professional assistance in many different areas. And so they are a great resource for that. They really are encouraging for entrepreneurship, especially in certain fields, which I cannot list them all, but there's so many different financial programs, incentive programs, tax back, tax rebate, all these different programs for people that are starting or want to get into business, even to the point that some of it is just free money. So who wants to leave money on the table? But they are a great resource. We work with them all the time for different things. So from a state level, they are an amazing resource for all business owners, but they do have a special area division for women and minority owned business owners. So that's great. We really appreciate that. From a chamber standpoint, you know, most people probably, as far as the chamber goes, just know that people want to do business with people that they know. So the chamber is many times the bridge for that communication. Whether we give out thousands of referrals, to different businesses all the time. And Libby is very involved with a lot of our leads groups and things like that. Many of you probably are familiar with that to some extent. But it's to make that connection for business owners for your needs, anything from insurance, from tax preparation to your lawn being taken care of. So, I mean, can help that with that communication gap. We also promote businesses. We're an advocate for many business owners and kind of the voice for small business in our community. So we're very involved with that as well. I tend to be more on the economic development side, so I don't know all of the details for the chamber, but we also are a very small group, so we all work together to support our community. So I don't know if anyone has any questions, but that's just my 30-second elevator speech.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle. That was really some great information. There's a lot of things that I did not realize that you guys did. So we will definitely swing back just for some questions at the end of the presentation. But now it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Ms. Stephanie Alderdice. Stephanie has been recognized as a rising star by the Greater Hot Springs Chamber of Commerce, one of Arkansas Business's 40 under 40, and honorary Order of the Kentucky Colonels. Most recently, she is a graduate of the Arkansas State Chamber's Leadership Arkansas class of number 14. And after having excelled in competitive speech and debate at both the national and international levels for more than a decade, she decided to shift to coaching during her graduate studies at Eastern Michigan. And then she'd go on to coach several national and international championship competitors at Western Kentucky University. After she moved to Hot Springs in 2012, she redirected that communication skills from the collegiate competition to digital content creation, web design, and e-commerce. In 2014, she brought her team building and results-oriented mindset to 61 Celsius. Since then, she's been a very active participant in the Hot Springs community, and she most recently served on the board of the Hot Springs Area Community Foundation, the Hot Springs National Park Rotary Club, and the Hot Springs Documentary Film Festival. She's currently a member of the Greater Hot Springs Chamber of Commerce, the Hot Springs 50 for the Future, the Downtown Association of Hot Springs, and she is an investor in the Hot Springs Area Metro Partnership. It is now my pleasure to introduce Ms. Stephanie Alderdice.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Hearing your bio is sort of like when people are singing happy birthday to you and you're not quite sure what to do with your hands or where to look. But I really appreciate that. And I wanted to thank everyone for joining today. And I wanted to take a quick moment to thank everyone, John Herfel and his team with Aspire and LPL for making this possible and extending the invitation. That was really appreciative, and I felt honored and humbled to be invited here today. And so I'm going to bounce back and forth between the camera and sharing my screen as we chat today. Is my screen sharing working for everyone? Okay, good. Now, without knowing everybody's reasons for tuning in today, I wanted to share a little bit of my history and some key lessons that I've learned as a business owner / entrepreneur, because, you know, maybe there are some people who are thinking of starting a business. Maybe you know somebody who would be a great business owner and needs a nudge, or maybe you already have a business and you've been in it for a while, and it is comforting to hear from someone else who might be facing similar obstacles. Really, my hope is that through this, I can maybe give you a nugget of information that you would find useful, or a bit of reassurance as you head down your own path. I'm going to break everything up into two parts. The first being how I got to where I am today, and the second being some of the key lessons I've learned thus far. You've heard a bit of it, and so I'll try not to go repeat the path too much, but you know, it's interesting to have folks reach out to me with the label entrepreneur, because if I'm being 100% honest, it's a title I wouldn't have dreamed of having 10 years ago. Running an ad agency, overseeing staff, projecting budgets and networking. These are all tasks that seemed beyond what I had envisioned for myself as they mentioned, in 2005, I was hired by Western Kentucky University to join the coaching staff for their speech team. It was really a mix of two things: public speaking, which involved researching, writing, and delivering speeches meant to persuade or inform, and the interpretation of literature, which was performing short stories and poetry like theater, but without costumes and props. So we would coach students to perform these different speeches and pieces of literature, and then we would travel September through April to various tournaments across the country. And really, no matter what you were doing in speech and debate, your goal was to communicate creatively, to sell your message and win over the audience and judges. Now, it was there that I met my husband, Corey, and things really started to change in 2012. If you haven't met Corey Alderdice, he is now currently and still the director of the Arkansas School for Math, Science, and the Arts, and he was offered the position in 2012. Now, at that time, we had a toddler, and my family lives in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, so relocating to Arkansas was going to change my professional trajectory because there weren't many universities kind of specializing in speech and debate like I did, but I was ready to take a break from the travel. And we decided that I would work from home initially on an e-commerce website that Corey had started. That would be Speech Geek Market. It is an e-commerce website that sells speech and debate materials to high schools. It was here that I began to teach myself how to use graphic design software, web development, and how to really utilize social media as a way of expanding brand awareness and getting people to shop on our website. And it was a fun sort of side hustle, as you would say, but working on the website wasn't really what I had envisioned for long-term full-time employment. So I began to reach out to some folks who I knew in Hot Springs to see what job opportunities might have been available. And I see a lot of Hot Springs faces, so the name Carrie Owen is probably somewhat familiar. She really played a pivotal role because in August of 2014, she put me in touch with Kirby Williams, who owned the ad agency Kirby & Company. At the time, the agency was primarily handling political campaigns and traditional advertising. So I came on board bringing my e-commerce, social media, and digital marketing skills, but had to learn a whole new host of tasks, which was media buying, press releases, designing print and outdoor ads, and so on. See, my experience in communication had always been theory and performance. I never took any business courses. I didn't focus on marketing. So while a lot of the basics of communication I was really familiar with, the execution of media buying and ad design was something that I sort of hit the ground running. Toward the end of 2015, a little more than a year after I had started, Kirby announced that he was going to be transitioning away from the agency and into a new position at Stone Bank. And there were two options that were presented to me at the time. I could work for whoever purchased the agency from Kirby, or I could buy the business and run it myself, which is a big decision to make after 1 year of learning a new skill set. After, thinking it over and chatting with my husband, we decided to take the leap, which is a really fortunate position to be in when you have enough financial security as a family that you can take that sort of jump. So that brought us to where we are today, 61 Celsius, which we named for the temperature of the thermal waters in Hot Springs. We didn't have a Kirby, so we didn't call it Kirby & Co. anymore. And we are a full service agency. We tackle everything from website design and development to video production, branding, public relations. We are a full stack creative agency with about, I want to say 4 people working full time and then a photographer that we have on staff. Now, the reason why, I'm going to stop screen sharing for a minute. Is it not wanting to? I was going to transition, stop share. Okay. Sorry, you hear me narrate my thought process as I click the buttons. I share all of this story of being a speech coach and then moving into advertising because I didn't set out to become an entrepreneur. It was the natural evolution of my professional turning point. I had to reframe what I know and love. I didn't just know how to coach speech and debate. I knew and love how connecting with audiences and leading individuals, being creative and focusing on achievable goals, those were all of the things that I knew and loved. And those were all abilities that were at the core of running an ad agency. So when I made the what I know and love the foundation of what I wanted to do, I was able to identify the I can learns, which are, the skills and information I could reasonably pick up, like laying out ads and how do you design logos and writing press releases. And then I also had to identify the who can help, the people who could mentor or provide services that I needed to fill in the gaps. And one of the things that I have found is that for a lot of women, entrepreneurship is huge and scary. After all, we've heard the statistic that more than half of new businesses fail within the first 5 years. But I did some research, and in 2019, American Express had commissioned a report on the state of women-owned businesses, and they found that women-owned businesses continue to trend above all other businesses. On average, women are starting over 1,800 new businesses between 2018 and 19, and especially women of color are really beginning to seize that entrepreneurial spirit. So whether you're in the midst of running a full-time business, a side business that you're hoping to scale up, or if you're considering making the leap, there are 3 big lessons that I learned. And this is where I pause and go back to the screen share. Here we go. So, oh, come on. Oh, boop. There we go. There are 3 takeaways that I really wanted to make sure that I passed along to folks when I look at my experience from the entrepreneurial position. Quick question. Let's be honest for a moment. Raise your hand or indicate if you have ever thought or said the phrase, if I want it done right, I'll just do it myself. Right? Yeah, we've all kind of been there. As a parent, I have found that starting a business is a lot like raising a child. It is time consuming, expensive, and frustrating. But it is also a source of passion, pride, and you're protective of your business and your child. When I had my baby, I didn't want just anyone to babysit. And if I did have somebody in there, I was worried, are they doing a good job? And I have found, especially in the beginning, it was the same as an entrepreneur and business owner. There was a big temptation to not just DIY, do it yourself, but DIAY, do it all yourself so that you can be in control of everything. And the problem that I faced was there were a lot of moving parts that I didn't have time to do everything at the level I needed to. I eventually had to relinquish some control, and I knew how to lead a team. I knew how to do my job, but I don't have a law background. So drafting client contracts, I eventually learned, how much work you can do before somebody decides that they're not going to pay for something. So things like legal contracts or payroll taxes and filing. Contracts and taxes, if you mess them up, can be very, very expensive in the long run. So when I was able to focus on the things that I know and love, and then identify the small things I could learn, I built a team that I could trust to cover the things that I couldn't learn quickly or do well. And that's a big thing that I would pass along to any small business owner or a woman entering entrepreneurship. Whether you are starting small and you have a friend who might be an accountant and you want to compensate them in some small way to assist you with your bookkeeping part-time, or if you are ready to bring on a full-time CPA or have a lawyer on retainer who can look over these things, investing in a team that you know is knowledgeable and reliable is incredibly important and useful from an entrepreneurial standpoint. The second thing that I wanted to pass along was a quote I found that really I've taken to heart. It's the, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. This quote from Heather Hartnett's become my new mantra. You know, there are all these studies that say that communication, teamwork, and creativity are traits that businesses look for in employees, but you also need to look at traits that small business owners need to have. And innovation and leadership are important traits, but if you ask me, I'd really argue that for an entrepreneur, and especially for women who are looking at entrepreneurship, resilience and adaptability are some of the most crucial skills that you have to have in order to pave that way for success. You can't stop the waves in this situation means that you cannot predict or prevent every obstacle that's going to come your way. Your star employee may quit. Your top client might leave, your planet might undergo an unprecedented pandemic that's dramatically altering the way we operate. Those are the waves you can't stop. But learning to surf means that you are open to changing the way your business operates in order to meet those constraints and obstacles that are around you. For example, in 2020, we had several restaurants that were clients, and they had relied on their dining room operations to stay afloat. And when the dining room shut down, we had one, we were working with Squeezebox Pizza downtown, and very quickly we were working with Cheryl. They had had online ordering, but we worked with them to run Google Ads, to run Facebook. They very quickly adapted to offering delivery services as a way to stay in business. And it was really nice to see this client identify, and we worked with them, okay, we can't change that, we can't operate in this way, but by adapting, we've sort of been checking in with her, and they have managed since March to stay pretty close to where they were in 2019 financially. And so that adaptability and really controlling what you can control have been a key lesson that we have learned. For example, as an agency, we leaned in much stronger into our digital presence. We've been assisting with a lot more video production. We've had new clients reach out to us because in the past they have gone to all of their different businesses giving presentations on where they are financially, giving their quarterly reports, and they couldn't do that anymore, and they needed someone to help with the video production aspect. So that's where we began leaning once everything changed. It's really a lesson in control what you can control. And if it's out of your control, you gotta be willing to be flexible and figure out a way to keep moving in the right direction. And I'm keeping an eye on the clock because I know we're trying to keep it within 30 minutes. And the last one that's really important to me is the imposter syndrome. And under this slide, it's sort of, there are two key pieces that I wanted to put out there. If you've heard of imposter syndrome, it kind of began gaining popularity in 2018. It's this nagging fear that your success was just due to luck and not your talent or abilities, and that everyone's going to find out that you aren't as good at what you do as you seemingly are. And this imposter syndrome is something that a lot of experts identified as trending among professional women. And I take that sort of, if you've heard of imposter syndrome, you can do research, it's out there. And then I saw another piece of research that was talking from the University of Pennsylvania. They did studies trying to figure out if you could identify people who were more likely to become entrepreneurs. And the two traits that they identified as being the biggest indicators were overconfidence and gender. They seem to find that overconfident men were more often in their research more likely to become entrepreneurs than women, because their study showed that women were more often able to accurately assess the risks in a situation. Starting a business is risky, and so they found not that there was any difference in ability, intelligence, or innovation, that men and women are both innovative, creative, and intelligence, but a lot of times those what ifs and the risks were what was leading fewer women to become entrepreneurs. And listen, this is where I circle back, because I am the biggest person to what if myself to sleep at night and worry about the different ways in which I needed to be prepared for an uncertain future. But that's why so many of these things that I talked about became important to me as an entrepreneur, that building a foundation on what you know and love, having a team that you can rely upon, knowing that there's a lot that's beyond your control and adapting to it. Those are all of the things that fall into that, who you are as an entrepreneur, who you are as a business owner, who you can rely upon, help reassure you in those moments where you have the imposter syndrome or you worry about the risks. That helped me as an individual and as a business owner have a bit more faith in the direction we were going. We've been going strong for, it'll be 5 years in 2021 since I bought the business. And the one message I wanted to leave anyone, if they were to pass it along to other folks, is there are a lot of things that'll be beyond your control. There will be failures, there will be dissatisfied people, and you will make mistakes. That doesn't make anyone an imposter. It doesn't mean your business isn't a success. It means you're human, and that nobody can replicate what you do. And entrepreneurship paths are all gonna look different. There are folks who've had wildly different experiences than mine, but I have been incredibly grateful because of places like the Chamber of Commerce, different organizations within town that have given me the opportunity to meet and network with individuals. By leaning into the resources that are available for me as a woman and as an entrepreneur, that has been invaluable in getting us to where we are today. So it's tough. There are going to be times where it's difficult starting and operating a business, but my hope is that we get more women out there making the plunge, utilizing the resources and the networks and connections available, because the greater diversity you have in people operating businesses, the stronger our local economies are going to be. So again, thank you so much for letting me come here and chat about my experience. And I will share one last time my screen with I'm getting a little faster at it each time, with my contact information. If anybody wants to follow up, question, chat, have a Zoom lunch one day where I do a little less talking, a little more nibbling, and you can chat more. I wanted to leave you with my information. And again, I wanted to thank everyone again today for thinking of me and including me on the webinar.
Yes, thank you so much, Stephanie. I really enjoyed hearing your story and how you got to where you were, or where you are, excuse me. I would like to ask anybody if they have any questions. You can feel free to unmute yourself. I have one question for you, Stephanie.
Mhm.
You were talking about how you did literature and poetry all over the world. So I've got to ask, who is your favorite poet, or what is your favorite book of literature?
I don't know if I have a favorite poet per se, but there is one poem that I always loved, and I feel horrible because I cannot remember the gentleman's name, but it was a spoken word poetry, and the whole gist of his poem was how he grew up, and he was a really sensitive kid, and his dad was always giving him a hard time about crying, and sons don't cry, and sort of the be tough and grow up. And so as he became a parent himself, he would talk about being happy that he had daughters because it was okay for the daughters to cry, and as a dad he could handle that. And it builds up to this really sweet point where his wife, they were going to have a son, but something happened in the delivery and they knew that the baby wouldn't survive. And he said, but just for one moment, I heard him cry. And he said it in a beautiful way. And every time I think about it, it always gave me goosebumps. So I will have to look up the author and send you the link because I'm not doing it justice.
Please do. I would love that. My degree is in education and it's language arts, and so we read a lot of literature. So yeah, that's great. So I'm going to open up the floor for any more questions. You can also direct some questions to Michelle Radcliffe as well, if you have any questions for her.
Well, Stephanie, I know I'm going to schedule a Zoom lunch with you for sure.
Wonderful.
And Michelle, would you tell us again when you were talking about the women and minority help, what program is that and how we would contact that?
That is through the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, which is a state agency. Let's see, I think I can tell you what they're, oh no, I don't have it up. I normally keep that open all the time because we refer to all of their programs. But yeah, it's called Women in Minority Owned. It's that division. And they provide, it's a resource, all the list of all the resources and contact information.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have another question for Stephanie real quick. With having a little one, how do you juggle your professional life and your home life all at the same time?
It is really hard. Luckily now, my little one isn't as little as he used to be. He's about 10 years old and very much hooked up to a screen. And this is one of those times where having to sit down and sort of make priorities and say, you know, what are the things that I really need to do? What are the things that I'm going to have to say no to in order to sort of juggle? And I would be lying if I said that there weren't times where I did more work on the business than I would have liked. And I only have one. I have a 10-year-old boy who loves being on computers and whatnot. And really being able to have somebody else at home, having my husband who understands those responsibilities, and us being honest about what we need at any given time is incredibly helpful. And then me reminding myself, okay, you can't say yes to everything. Like learning when to say no or not now are some of the biggest keys I would give to women who are navigating raising children and trying to make everything work with a job, and then realize that that other women are in the same boat. And that's why I like working with folks and kind of being transparent, especially right now with having a son. He is at dad's workplace today, but I think the more we can be honest about what it's like having kids, having small kids and being in business, my hope is that people have a little bit more grace and patience and understand that, you know, we have to be flexible. So that's my hope for the future, is that it's easier for the new families starting businesses, that we give them that patience and help that they need.
Stephanie, it was fun to hear your backstory, just everything from debate and speech to where you are now. I just thought that was really cool. And I had a couple of comments. First of all, Squeezebox is my favorite pizza in Hot Springs. So I'm so glad that you were able to work with them, and I'm glad to hear that they're doing well. So on behalf of all of the pizza lovers, and also, you know, from a staffing standpoint, since you mentioned investing in your team, I would love to either bring you along with any of my prospect calls or whatever, and just have you share that. Or I'll just take a recording and said, this is what Stephanie says.
Yes, you can put it down. You can put my name next to that. Like, get a team together. And I know, bless them, the folks at Prince and Toohey, they are CPAs, and I know what my strengths are, and accounting is not one of them. And so I think being able to put your pride aside and say, you know, you can be very good at things, but it's always good to bring on team members and support who bring more to the table. There's always room at the table. And that's also been true in terms of in our office. Aaron Buckley and his wife, Heather Buckley, are both in there. And I thought I knew stuff about websites, and then Aaron came on board and just blew everything I knew out of the water. And so I know that I can rely on them. Heather is brilliant with art direction and graphic design. And so while there were parts of me that would miss being able to tinker with those tasks, it's such a relief. And I really do think we have been able to succeed by virtue of it being a team and having folks that can contribute to that. So absolutely, from an employment standpoint, tell business owners, find those team members. And I'm sure Express does a great job with that matchmaking, finding new members to help people succeed.
I think I've seen Aaron. I think that's who I've seen like out and about with his camera and everything. He's been
If you see beast mode videos from Visit Hot Springs, he is the tall gentleman with the glasses. So yeah, he's out there with the camera a whole lot.
All right, are there any more questions?
Well, I have a comment. This is a fantastic way to have us network with one another. And I'm a bragger on people, so I want to brag on Libby Harrington. And I want to brag on John Harful for hooking me up with Libby Harrington. We had a fantastic hour-long conversation about what each of us did. And I got a client in Arkadelphia that they were looking for administrative help. So within a week of me getting in contact with Libby, she set that organization up with someone that actually lived in Arkadelphia, and they have a fantastic administrative assistant now. So, you know, these kind of Zoom conversations, it's fantastic to just get those tentacles out there and let other people know these kind of things are successful. So I really hope for Stephanie and for Michelle that this will be fruitful, and, you know, other people can spread the news about all these organizations that are here. So Stephanie and Michelle, thank you so much for speaking for us today.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yes, and that is a great segue into what I was going to say next, is that we not only have Stephanie and Michelle here and Laura, we also have Christy Nation, who is the CEO of Productivity Nation. She has been working with our company for about a year now and has helped us to become so productive in what we do and how we manage our time and just various things that way. So Christy Nation is a good asset as well. And then we also have Ms. Cora Jones on here, who is the president of the Women's Chamber. Ms. Cora, do you want to give a little shout out to the Women's Chamber? I don't think she's on here anymore. I think she just logged off. But anyway, there is a women's chamber for Hot Springs, and I actually just participated in one of their Zoom calls last night for the first time, and I was able to meet some different women in the area that way, and more resources. So be sure to look them up, Women's Chamber of Hot Springs. They're on Facebook, and they have a website as well. Oh, here comes Ms. Cora. Hold on. Hi, Ms. Cora, are you there?
I think I saw her.
I'm back.
Okay. Do you want to give a little shout out for the Women's Chamber?
I do. This is such an inspiring time to be on this line with all these beautiful women. And as we sit here, I look up 61 Celsius. You guys have an awesome team. And when you're talking about team building, I mean, all of this is such a great thing, because a team builder, adapt to changing, and an imposter. I gotta look that one up for real, because sometimes you feel like you're not that person that needs to be in that location. You're not feeling you're bringing enough to the table, but instead you really are. Because I'll just say this: last night we had our Zoom call for Women's Chamber, and you know, sometimes you just don't feel like you're bringing that. But then when everyone was like, "This was a great meeting," and you can walk away from it saying, "This is awesome," and to be on this call with so many beautiful women who are inspiring, who are helping to better Hot Springs, I'm fired up. And thank you for the Arkansas Economic Development Agency resources, and I'll look into that. I'm also a business owner also, so this really helps out with a lot of this. So I've wrote down everyone's information, and I will be calling each and every one of you. So on behalf of the Women's Chamber of Commerce, I thank y'all for this invitation.
Thank you, Ms. Cora. I really appreciate you. And then last but not least, I'm going to give a shout out to Laura Wilkerson Durham, who is the financial advisor here at Aspire Wealth Builders. And let me tell y'all, she's great. She's not only a good friend, but also a great boss. She's great to work with. But she has also taught me a lot with financial advising and what to do with that. And she is really good at what she does. So if y'all ever need any financial help, I'm going to personally recommend Laura to you. So you'll have my contact information if you need anything from her. And I'm going to go ahead and finish up this call, wrap it up, and finish saying don't forget to sign up for our email list. That's at www.aspirewealthbuilders.com. Just give us your email and we'll add you to that list and keep you up to date of what we're doing. You can also like our Facebook page, which is Aspire Wealth Builders, Laura Candace Wilkerson. And we post a lot of things on there about our events. And then finally, I would like to invite you again to our Christmas party. It is going to be virtual and here at the office December 18th from 11 to 1 p.m. Again, thank you so much for joining us today, taking time out of your busy schedules to participate in this. Stephanie, Michelle, Cora, Christy, everybody, thank you so much. And thank you for taking time out of your work day to speak to us and kind of give us a little bit more information about what's going on here in Hot Springs and what different women are doing here in the area.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Y'all have a great weekend and a happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Thank you.
Thank